Hey team, it's Walker Deibel, author of Buy Then Build, creator of the Acquisition Lab. I think that a lot of times first-time buyers don't know how to make an offer, right? They're not sure, what to do, what's fair, what's right, what's not. So I want to take a minute and just kind of talk about how to think about an LOI and some of the ways that, or how to think about your offer and some of the ways that you can try to make this make sense for you. So imagine, if you would, a Venn diagram. Actually, you don't have to imagine it because I drew it right here. And on one side you have a buyer, and on the other side you have a seller, okay? And I want to talk about, what is the purchase price that you're wanting to pay for this business, okay? Now, there is going to be a value spectrum of any business, okay? And what that means is that because there's, presumably one buyer and one seller, or maybe potentially a few people, there's going to be a range of value that this company is going to actually transact for, okay? And the thing is that this outer rim of the Venn diagram is actually the entire range. It's how low does a buyer want to actually pay to get this, and sort of how high would someone potentially pay for it, right? Now, with any particular buyer, which in this case is you, right, there's going to be a certain overlap here, okay? In theory, you need to get to the point where your purchase price is where the intersection of where you two are going to agree is going to be, right? And so this ultimately is the space that you're trying to find, okay? The seller obviously thinks that their business is worth, 20 times EBITDA, and they should, because they bled and they sweat and they built a great company and you want to buy it. And so they know that it's worth that much, and it is. The problem is that it's not economically feasible. So we as buyers want to pay as little amount as possible. In fact, if they would give us the business, we'll go ahead and take the risk on, right? Right. So the thing is the first step is really just kind of coming back to the fundamentals, okay? You need to remember why it is that you're doing acquisition entrepreneurship, right? So obviously you've got the benefits of the the wealth advantages and the vehicle for autonomy and all of these great things that you're going to do with the business. And of course you went through the prep funnel thoroughly and have found the business that is right for you, something that you can bring value to, that's in an industry that you will be proud to say that you're working in. But I want you to remember, okay? I want you to remember that when you are practicing acquisition entrepreneurship, there is a margin of safety, right? And the margin of safety is margin of safety. And the margin of safety is pretty much driven by these three factors, okay? The first is that you're paying low multiples, okay? The valuations for, Main Street businesses are, typically going to be between 2 and 4 times discretionary earnings, right? And discretionary earnings are essentially the total cash flow that is available to the owner of this business, right? And so if you think about 2 to 4 times, you're talking about like 2 to 4 years worth of earnings, okay? So if you compare that to, publicly traded companies that can sometimes trade, over a 30 times, a price to earnings ratio, you're talking about something that you own completely that you're able to get for essentially 3 years worth of earnings, right? Plus it's bank financeable and all of the other things that we talk about, right? And so because you have this sort of like low valuations in this space, you also get a very high cash flow to price ratio, okay? And because it's bankable, because you can use bank lending, it's an extremely high cash flow to investment ratio as well, okay? And so the thing is you also have a low default rate. So for decades, businesses that have been acquired with SBA-backed loans have had a default rate of right about 1.5 to 1.7%, okay? So just compare that to startups for a minute. Pretend you're going to invest your, $50,000 into a startup company, okay? Good job. It's going to, risk reward, it's going to be fantastic, it's going to be big. Except most of them aren't, right? And that's what we know. And the thing is that buying an existing company is actually the opposite. It's got the opposite kind of results, and that less than 2% for decades have actually defaulted, okay? Now, I'm not telling you that that means that the deal you're doing is safe. I am never going to tell you to buy a business. I'm just going to praise the business model, okay? Obviously, if you're going to buy a company and you're going to take this financial risk, you need to do it on your own, right? And so, but I want to remind you of these items, okay? So, you know, the odds of you not defaulting, which isn't exactly success, but it's a, you know, we all think we want to go out and start a business, right? I mean, that sounds like a good idea. Does it? Well, we can buy it, and actually our default rate is going to be less, okay, by significant amount. Instead of, you know, 99% starting a company and not failing and not exceeding $1 million in revenue, this is actually the opposite, okay? So you've got low valuations, high cash flow to price ratio, and a low default rate. Now, the thing is once we start getting into a specific situation, what happens? Well, we start to forget all of these things. I mean, it took me a while, you know, the first company, the second company, it took me a while to get used to it, right? And the game is there is this valuation of range, okay? And the truth is if you're a first-time buyer, it takes a while to get up into this range. And you might be hanging out back here, right? And the broker is telling you, you know, well, what you're saying doesn't make any sense and blah, blah, blah. And you know, maybe the broker's mind is here or maybe the broker is here even, depending on the specific deal. But you know, the thing is the broker is going to be speaking somewhere in the range because they want to get a deal done, okay? If the seller wants to sell, they just need a fair offer, okay? They need something that makes sense, don't they? Because would you sell your business for something that didn't make sense? No. But the thing is that all of these margins, all of the margin of safety starts to fall apart because of one thing. Execution risk, right? Let's unpack that. Okay, what's happening in this transaction up here? Well, the seller is getting their return, okay? They're getting their return on all the work that they put in, right? What's the buyer getting? They're getting a business, but basically what they're getting is risk. When you're buying the company, you're the one taking on all the risk in this equation, right? And that's why we're hanging out back here. And sometimes, especially as a first-time buyer, it's going to take you a while to learn this market, okay? And so I just want to touch base very briefly on some of the things that, you know, can kind of bridge you as the buyer up here and can kind of bring the seller back here in terms of, you know, what are we going to do, okay? And there's different levers to pull, but the big thing is to really evaluate the business and try to understand, you know, the different business risks associated with it and so on and so forth. And I think that a lot of times, by the way, the best way to reduce the business risk of any business is to make sure that you're the right buyer. Make sure that you're the one that can bring something to the table on this deal. And, you know, the people that, you know, just start right here in the middle are the ones that they see a business and they know that they can do something with it, okay? Get confident in the model, but find the business that's right for you. Go through the aptitude and action and find that growth opportunity that's right for you, okay? That's the biggest way to make this whole equation work. From there, you know, probably the top 4 things are going to be, number 1, purchase price. So what is the price that you're paying? Okay, the easiest way to get the seller to agree is overpay, right? But you want to kind of keep it in a place that balances the risk that you're taking on, okay? You want to be sure that you can execute on what you think you can do, okay? So number 1 is the purchase price paid, okay? Higher price moves that way, lower price moves that way. Next is going to be, okay, maybe I've got to pay this price. Okay, we've got to pay, we'll just use green. Because we're talking about money, right? So I'll go ahead and pay this price right here, seller, okay? Because it's on the higher end of this because maybe I'm getting some additional things, okay? Maybe they're helping me with working capital or maybe I whatever it is, okay? Some intangible things that I like. So I'll go ahead and pay you this price, but I want, you know, a seller note so that my out of pocket is actually going to be back here, okay? Some people believe that, and in some situations it's actually true. I'm gonna have to make another video on seller notes and when that applies, but the thing is that, you know, a seller note is one way to sort of bridge this gap. Another is like holdbacks or stability payments, and how much cash is actually being paid at closing, right? So these are kind of like the primary things, right? Nothing earth-shattering here, but the thing is like, how comfortable are you, and what are the few low-hanging fruit tools that you can use to sort of, you know, help get the deal back up in this range for you, okay? So the thing is don't forget, at the end of the day, the business model works, okay? The business model works. There are failures out there, okay? But like you've got a margin of safety, and what you are really trying to do is manage your execution risk, okay? Can you execute? And that's what the seller is thinking in their head is, look, man, when you buy this from me, this is yours. You have complete control of the operations. You have complete control of the cash flow. You have complete control of the sales process and everything else associated with this business. You have complete control of the employees, and you legally own all the assets, right? So they are simply trying to sell you something at a fair price, and you are the one that is not necessarily trying to, you know, overthink exactly what the deal is, or value a deal, or evaluate a deal. You're really trying to manage your own execution risk, right? And so keep that in mind. And as you think about these kinds of deals, just know that, you know, look at the growth opportunities, look at and understand if they are potential or real growth opportunities, understand the business risks associated with the business, and the least risky the business is, the more willing you should be able to pay for this. And that can be intrinsic to the business itself, or it can be what you bring to the table. There is a school of people that believe that you should pay the least price possible at every single time. They bring a lot of real estate thinking into it. You make money when you buy, not when you sell. That's not exactly true in business. And in fact, if you go to the top universities in this country and you talk to the professors and the practitioners that are recruiting these, you know, newly minted MBAs and alumni of these institutions, and you talk to them about, you know, how should I deal with this? You know what they say? They say, find a quality company and pay for it. Pay for quality, okay? So some people want to come in and believe that they're going to make money when they buy. Other people want to find a business with as little intrinsic risk in it as possible, and they want to bring to the table as much as they can in terms of, you know, teams and talent and execution, because this is how you are eliminating execution risk, okay? So this is kind of the macro topic, and this is how it kind of surfaces in real life. So good luck on your deals. I hope that was helpful, and I hope it'll help give you some clarity in terms of some of the fundamentals, what it is that you're doing, and how to think through some of the tools that you can use to put an offer together. If you're interested in learning more, we run an acquisition lab. I run the acquisition lab, which is live workshops, about 40 pre-recorded interviews. We've got guest speakers and vetted cohorts of top talent, and we all work together to help each other find and buy businesses. You can go to acquisitionlab.com and check it out and see if it's for you, and apply. If so, look forward to seeing you on the inside.